We have to compromise our health, our life, just to be passing. And to the point that, are I even passing enough?
If they see my hands, what would they think if they see my big feet, and all that. So you have all that worries.
That to me was like that was like the definition of being passable.
Does being passable matters to find the right man? What is passable? Because I think this is a very Asian kind of thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, for our trans sisters who are from the West and who are based in the West. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there is really a big and strong passing culture here in Asia. So what is passable? For me, passable is for a trans woman who blends in among cisgender women.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's been the culture that we were raised, right? I remember back when I was in the Philippines, I haven't transitioned as a transgender woman yet. My peers were all flamboyant. We all hang out. And every time we go to, like fiesta, like go to different places, and then you meet some guys, the guys also would select the most feminine one and then the most quiet one, or the most
Maria Clara one.
Exactly, right?
Yes.
So I think seeing that made me thought that I should be like her, quiet and like being more feminine, acting like more like a woman. That has been ever since that I want to be more like this. And then my hormones started and everything. When I came here in Japan, working as a entertainer, when some men say, "Oh, your hands are big," or like your feet are big, you kind of feel offended. I feel offended about before now, because I was like, I've tried enough to be as feminine as I can. I did all the surgery, and then you're gonna notice my feet and my hands. It triggered me before, but now of course it doesn't, because I accept myself for who I am right now. But then that mentality started when I was in the Philippines. The more you act like a feminine, the more you're passable.
What's passing for Filipinos might be uber passing for Westerners, right? What is passing for the Westerners may not be passing for the Filipinos.
The reason why defining what's passable is difficult and even challenging to put in stone and really have a common understanding, parameters, criteria, what passable is, because it changes over time. I think before, when I'm talking about me growing up, I was born in 1980s. So when I was in my 20s, the definition of being a trans woman were those coming from Japan, right? So they worked in Japan and then they came back to the Philippines, and then you see them.
Oh, same with me. That's how I came here too.
That to me was like the definition of being passable. So it means to say there are a lot of things that we need to work on. I was like assessing myself, like, how can I be that? Like, what are the steps to reach that? So that became like the trajectory of that belief of what it means to be passable. But I think over time, because of the conversations that we have on, say, even queerness, queerness is something you cannot box as something passable or not. It's just technically a huge box that invites everybody in. That word passable is already crumbling in itself because it no longer holds value.
But I think the question here is that, do you really need to pass in order to find the right man? Like, is it a prerequisite, or is it just an insecurity that most of us trans women are trying to face? Are we still in the stage or in the era where we have to compromise our health, our life, just to be passing? And to the point that, are I even passing enough?
I think I will say no. Definitely no. I think the first thing that we have to look at is, am I passable enough for myself? Or we're talking about transitioning. Am I good enough for myself? And I'm not even talking about what's happening internally, although that's another thing to consider. But just talking about when you look at yourself in the mirror and you look at all the flaws, imperfections, hairy legs, mustache, mustache, what have you. And if you want to do something about that, do something about it. But if you feel that you don't have the resources to do that yet, but you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, well, you know what? I love myself because my parents love me, my friends love me, I have this validation of love, then you will definitely become passable for yourself. So I think defining what's passable to yourself, passable enough, is a good question to ask first, because attracting someone does not necessarily mean you need to be passable. You cannot be passable to one person, but you're passable enough to yourself. You can still find a partner. Sometimes even you feel like you're not passable, but someone sees the beauty in you, and then you become passable. And eventually you learn to be passable enough to yourself and say, you know what, I've never seen the beauty that I have like resting here, but one person saw that beauty. So yeah, I am passable. You don't have to be passable in whatever definition you have about passable, maybe socially, psychologically, etc. Passable for you to find the right man, or for you to be attractive even. In order for us to be available for others, we need to start being available for ourselves. In the ugly, the beautiful, the nasty, the red flags, green flags, that's part of who we are. So as what Tiffany said, when she started embracing herself, her identity, that yeah, I'm a trans woman, and so what? When she started doing that, it was just very, very self-nourishing.
I feel more like I didn't have to think about and worry about all these things, like what other people would think about me. Because back then, like you always think about like what would they think, like if they see my hands, what would they think if they see my big feet, and all that. So you have all that worries. Since I changed my mindset about it, I was like, wow, like that's like there's so much tons of like weight in me like get lifted after changing that mindset.
Do you feel that the word passable is even meaner within the community? There's a gatekeeping of some sort within the community, but if you look at outside the community, probably people don't really care.
It feels good to be validated, and it's a trap. Because once you started getting validation that you are so feminine, it becomes addicting. The more you surround yourself to people who relies on validation, the more you go in deeper into the hole. And by the time you are already in the abyss, you lost yourself. You are going to be dependent with everyone's validation. And I am telling this with full conviction because I have been there. And it's a sad place. You forget about yourself because all you hear is all the good stuff. And this is the hardest part. And this is what also I realized. By the time that you start reflecting, it's painful because no one's gonna reflect with you. It's just gonna be you. I can't blame people because again, since from the very beginning, we have been rejected. So who doesn't want to get validated,
Yes, exactly.
That's why stories like this are very empowering for trans women because it's a realization for everyone that we cannot keep living based on others' validation. There's a whole world out there.
You lost yourself because you were defined by the physical looks, when in fact there's more to you than the physical looks that seems do not matter because everyone's talking about being passable. So to me, to remove the pressure, I guess, from that addiction or dopamine urgic feeling of validation, I think having different people that's like, having a broader, probably multiple pockets of friends who's probably not your core would help diffuse that cognitive dissonance of what it means to be passable. And am I passable enough?
There's nothing wrong with beautification. Girl, it's giving. If you want to do that, yes. But just be mindful of the process. Learn to step back and assess. Am I already being enough for myself or am I doing it for others? You don't need to be passing. It's not even a prerequisite. You could be passing for the other person and you could not be passing for the other person. Worst is, you're trying to pass for someone and the person that you like doesn't even see you passing.
Being passable enough for ourselves, really, because again, we risk our lives, our health, just to be passable. And where does it stop? We're 2024. The way that we see love, relationships have evolved over time, and we now have conversations such as this
It's about time for us to normalize things. Normalize about, hey, there are girls who can't be passing for now. Hey, there are girls who are not passing but are happy. Hey, there are girls that are having hard time dealing when it comes to dating and relationship. Hey, there are trans women who are happy with their love life, and you should be happy too.